Today we're going to replace a door lock actuator for power door locks in a Honda Accord. This is the 8th generation Accord. This is going to be at a 2010, but this probably works for all years from 2007 to 2012, I believe. This is the regulator or the actuator itself. Got it from a Honda dealer. It's an OEM part. You can probably find others as well. I chose to go with Honda on this. Okay, so a few of the tools that's helpful to have is these door or trim tool kits for automotive interiors. It's really good to have these tools, just little plastic or nylon tools that help you get off trim pieces without damaging them. You can get them at some hardware stores or like a Northern Tool, Harbor Freight, that kind of place for pretty cheap, just a few bucks. And then also a flashlight. Need a couple screwdrivers, some small ones to get some of these little panels open. It's also really important to have a number 3 Phillips drill bit. If you don't have this size drill bit, there's a really good chance that you'll spin out in the screws when you're taking off the door lock actuator, and that'll damage the screws, and then you'll have to get a screw extractor or something like that to get them out. So again, number 3 Phillips bit is really important, and a good driver is helpful to have with the high torques on these screws. Okay, so first thing you want to do is get a good small screwdriver that you can take a couple of these little panels out. First, here up by the inside door handle, there's a little panel. You just put the screw in the top, this little tab, and you should be able to pull it right out. Okay, the next little panel we're going to take off here is inside the door handle area. So you just get the little screwdriver. There's a little slot there that you pop in there and just pop it loose. And this one hangs on. It's got a little tab that keeps it in there. So we'll just leave that in there. You'll see there's a Phillips screw in there, just a regular Phillips, and then there's 2 more Phillips screws up here where the inside door handle is. Okay, so we'll start with the little screw down here in the door handle area. We'll take that off, and we'll take the 2 screws up here on the inner door release handle. Alright, and that should be all the screws that you need to take out. Okay, so now we've got the screws out, we're ready to start popping the panel off. So grab one of these trim tools with a pretty sharp blade on it and pretty wide, that helps. And you just gotta kind of find a good spot to slide under the trim panel. Slide it in a little ways, a couple inches maybe, and then just give it a gentle pry here. And you'll hear it pop off. And then just kind of slide down. About halfway down, kind of where the door handle is, it'll be another one. There'll be a few more around the bottom and also on the inside. You just kind of keep working your way around and be gentle. Try not to damage it. Don't pull too hard. And eventually, so we get them all popped out. I think there's about 6 that go all the way around. Now that's just in the lower, kind of this light gray area where the plastic is. Up at the top, there aren't any of those little snaps. Basically, the door pad just hangs at the top. Pull the whole door pad off, just get a little bump from underneath. I'll slide up. You will have to kind of get it past this other upper trim piece up here, this black trim piece, because there's a little jog. Okay, so just pop that up, and you might have to kind of wiggle it loose, but that'll get the door pad loose from the inner door structure. Now, once you do this, there's a couple attachments on the inside. There's a wire harness that connects to the power windows. There's also the cables that attach to the inner release handle. So you don't want to pull the door pad completely off yet. Kind of just support it. Okay, so on the inside, you want to disconnect this harness down by where the power window switch is. There's a little tab you push in from the back, and you should be able to pull that right out. Got that disconnected. Okay, the next thing you need to disconnect is this inner door release handle. And what we're going to do is keep it attached to the cables. We're just going to pop it through the door panels. Okay, so we're going to push in the 2 tabs on top. And there's also 1 tab on the kind of the forward area that you're going to need a tiny little screwdriver to help push that tab in. And once you do so, you'll kind of push the release handle through to the inside of the door pad and then just rotate it and then bring it back through and let it hang. Now you should be able to completely take off the door pad trim. Set it aside. Okay, so we've got the inner door pad trim removed. Now we need to remove some of this plastic because we need to get to this back area here where the door lock actuator is. But this time we're also going to go ahead and just disconnect the harness. Got a little tab on top. Just take that out. And use this trim tool again to kind of pull off some of this plastic. Now this has some tape on it here, but you'll see there's adhesive all the way down on this plastic. And if you just kind of work your way through it with the trim tool, it should come off. And you will be able to hopefully reuse this if it's still got some tack to it. If not, may need to retape it when we're all done. But I'm going to kind of fold this plastic out of the way. So now we're ready to actually disassemble the actuator itself. There's going to be 3 Phillips screws on the back here, and also this one up front here by the connector. So again, remember, number 3 Phillips bit is really good to have for these. You want to put good pressure on it, crack them loose. Okay, so we've got the 3 screws removed from the back. These are the countersunk Phillips screws here, and there's 1 regular panhead screw up here by the connector. Okay, now I've got the screws removed for the actuator. I'm also going to pop this little clip off that holds this cable on, just because it'll make it easier to deal with the actuator after that. You're going to have to kind of get a screwdriver to push the tab in from behind it to get it out. It's been pretty tight. Once we pop that out, we'll be ready to pull the actuator out. This is a shot inside the door panel, and you'll see there's 1 lock rod here attached to the actuator where my finger is. And that lock rod we're going to leave attached to the door at the top. And we're going to pull the actuator down and just slide it off of that lock rod. Okay, once we pull it off that lock rod, we'll just slide the door lock actuator down, maybe. Okay, so now we have the old actuator removed, and when we take out the new actuator, you'll see that it looks pretty similar. There are a couple differences even with the OEM version. So first thing, this lock rod, like I said, this is actually left in the door, so we're going to remove this one that came with it. We won't need it since it's still in the door. The other difference is that the old one has this cover that covers a part of the actuator, which I'm going to remove and reuse. So you can pry it off up here where the cables are. You can pry that piece off, unsnap it all the way around, and then you'll be able to take it off and put it on the new one and reuse kind of this anti-vibration tape that's in here, and helps kind of seal it off as well, so it'll fit better with that cover. Okay, so once we have that cover removed off the old actuator, we're going to pop the 2 cables out of these little snaps that they're in, and might need a screwdriver for one of these. Nope. So you'll see there's this one little lever here that we pull the cable out of, and you have to just tilt it at 90 degrees to get it out. This other one, you'll swivel it around, and then it'll pull, should pull straight out like that. Then we're going to take the new door lock actuator, and we'll just reattach those same cables same way. Put it in and straight, then turn it, and then we'll snap it back into the little areas in the actuator. Okay, once we have those cables reattached to the new actuator and secured, we're going to take that old cover from the old one. We're going to slip that on over top of the new actuator, like so. We'll snap it back together. And there's also a screw that goes in the corner here that I didn't mention earlier. So that'll completely secure this cover. Plus it has this, again, this kind of anti-flood or anti-vibration tape. Once you've got the cover back on and secured on the new actuator, got the cables attached securely, going to place it back into the door pocket here. I'm going to go over top of this harness here with it. And the trickiest part, again, of course, is going to be when you assemble it, inserting this lock rod into this little tab right here where this hole is. So this is the lock rod that's already hanging in the door. So you'll want to just thread that through with one hand as you're bringing the door lock actuator up into this little pocket recess area. Okay, so As I was saying, you slide the door lock actuator up and just make sure, you'll just have to do it by feel. And you can probably see it to some degree from this angle. Pop that lock rod through the hole, and once it's through, you should be pretty good. Got this little white tab here, you got to make sure you get through this hole for the child locks. And make sure the connector lines up with this hole here. And the other 3 fasteners line up on the back side of the door. And you'll be ready to reinstall the 3 fasteners back here and the screw that goes in. Okay, as I said, you got these 3 screws on the back here that are countersunk. And you got 1 screw on the front. Once you've fully torqued down all the screws for the new actuator and it's in place, go ahead and reconnect the electrical harness. And at this point, you should be able to test the inner door lock release handle. Good thing, it's a good time to try to go ahead and test that, make sure all the cables are working correctly. And also the outside door handle. You can also test the power door locks at this time. Using your key fob, you'll want to make sure that you actuate the little switch in the door jamb so that the door thinks it's closed when you do this. Which you can hear now, the power door locks are working. So it's a good sign. Okay, so once we've got everything secured on the door lock actuator and it's operating correctly, all we got to do is start reassembling everything. So we'll pop this little snap in for this cable, and then we'll also reassemble the door panel. Oh, after we reattach this plastic. So again, if you've damaged any part of it, you may want to get some tape and just reattach it. Helps kind of seal off noise and air. And then we'll attach the door pad again. Okay, so once you've got all the plastic reattached on the inside, we've got all the cables and everything reattached. Now we're going to install the door pad again, and you can see that there's about 8 of these little clips that snap in all the way around. Those are the ones we popped off before. So we're just going to take the door pad, hang it on the top, and then once you do that, you're going to thread this inner release handle through here, and it'll be able to just snap back into place. We'll also want to make sure definitely that you reattach the harness for the power door lock windows right underneath here. It should only go in one way. Okay, so I've reattached the harness for the power windows on the inside. You thread this inner release handle through, and then you should be able to just snap that back in to the door pad, and then bring it down, make sure it snaps in properly at the top where it seals to the window, and then in the back area here, you just need to make sure that you get the door pad around this little plastic bezel trim for the rear quarter window. Once everything is in place, you can snap in the snaps all the way around the rest of the door pad. Okay, so you're going to want to replace the 2 screws that we put into the door inner release handle bezel, and also down here in the pull handle there's 1 screw there. You'll want to replace the plastic trim pieces that go in there as well. Once you've done that, you should be able to close the door and lock it. Also unlock it. And it's a beautiful thing when it works.